Gravity Circuit is the first game released by a team of talented developers with a deep love for the games of the 90s and early 2000s called Domesticated Ant Games. It's a 2D action platformer with a wonderfully accentuated sense of style, made truly material by the way it's implemented throughout the entire experience to make the short time you spend with it memorable and immersive. So let's dive straight in. Gravity Circuit is unique in the fact that, unlike many of its peers, namely Mega Man titles, it's designed in such a way that melee strikes are the focal point of the combat. You can throw punches and kicks in a variety of directions to match the situation, and a large amount of the adversaries you'll encounter become stunned upon being attacked, making the intricacies of your approach, evasion and speed, the key to overcoming most threats, as opposed to pumping a deluge of damage into an enemy from a distance. This also incentivizes you to keep moving forward and blitz through the linear level design by allowing the way in which you approach the next encounter to be your driving force, instead of it just being forward is where the progress is. In my experience, having a foundation where evasion is imperative can rarely go wrong, usually only being dragged down by the implementation of the mechanics surrounding the playstyle. And, to Gravity Circuit's credit, it puts a unique spin on traversal, and by extension evasion, too, since you're equipped from the very beginning of the game with a hookshot, a ranged option which allows you to grapple onto and swing across pretty much any surface you like. As you might expect, such a process offers the potential for a serious speed boost. There's no doubt in my mind, however, that you've seen a grappling hook before. Even disregarding the semi-recent trend of a large number of games adding one, thanks to Titanfall 2 making it look so good, these things have been in not just gaming as a whole, but 2D gaming for a very long time, with the masterful Super Metroid's grappling beam being introduced 30 years ago. To this end, I may be wrong for calling the hookshot unique, but in truth, it has a dual purpose, and this is the ace up Gravity Circuit's gameplay-centric sleeve. Because you aren't just able to utilise the hookshot for some fancy movement, or to deal a paltry amount of damage to an enemy. No, you can use it to grapple onto and pick defeated enemies and projectiles up, at which point they can be subsequently launched at a vehement velocity in any direction of your choosing, dealing a staggering amount of damage to anything unlucky enough to be in its path. But the true magic in this mechanic is its potential. With sufficient skill in aiming your throws, you can chain kills together constantly, using your weapon in hand to destroy an enemy, then quickly grabbing the resulting body so you always have a new one to use. This rhythmic cycle isn't just fun, it's optimal, and its ability to one-shot enemies allows you to go much faster than you'd otherwise be able to, since you don't have to make anywhere near as many considerations about how to approach the battle when you run at them like a crash of lightning and launch a metric ton of steel at their head before they've even begun their attack animation. Gravity Circuit excels at always making you feel completely in control, despite the oftentimes frenetic gameplay, and the way your standard combat and mobility options intertwine contributes to this in no small part. But let's say you want something a little flashier than your already comprehensive moveset can provide. Something with a little more bite to break the rabble and elites alike where they stand. To this end, you're able to unleash a myriad of special moves called burst techniques. Abilities which each trade a stock of your energy gained through combat to instigate a unique effect of your choosing. Make no mistake, however, these are not the sub-weapons you may know of Mega Man or of Moon Rider, nothing like them in fact. These are an implementation of fighting game-esque special moves, the likes of which I've genuinely never seen in such a style of game before. Burst techniques are not just an array of slightly different projectiles. Instead, try uppercuts, back-breaking pile drivers, whirlwind kicks, a concentrated field of devastating energy. It's undoubtedly clear that the developers fully dedicated themselves to the melee combat model, and the fruits of their labour shine brightest here. Additionally, unlike fighting games where executing special moves can be a challenge in of itself, Gravity Circuit has iterated on the concept of such techniques requiring specific inputs by allowing you to map 4 moves of your choice to each direction of movement: up, down, sideways, and neutral, allowing you to match each of your chosen abilities to your desired direction, which makes the system as a whole feel personable and intuitive. Needless to say, having your uppercut mapped to up just feels right, and I know that I personally associate utility skills with being grounded, so I map those to down. But the point is, you can have it however you like, and experimenting with your chosen inputs as your repertoire expands to find the combination that feels perfect to you is an excellent approach. Moving on, intuitive customization isn't just a component of the burst system. It's present in 2 more types of upgrade which allow you to further personalize the way you play the game and increase your efficiency. The first is called chips, not to be confused with data chips, which are the game's codex collectibles. These things mostly encompass passive improvements or alterations to your stats and capabilities, making you harder, better, faster, and yes, stronger. You can have up to 3 of these equipped at any given time, making it pretty easy to plug any small hole in your approach. And unlike burst techniques, which require certain stages to be completed before they can be accessed, all chips are purchasable from the outset, allowing you to pre-plan where you're going to allocate your resources to facilitate your playstyle. The second type of upgrade you can acquire comes in the form of paint styles for your character, and despite being the most immediately noticeable, they are in truth the least practically impactful for the most part. Most of the palettes you can choose from have very subtle effects which supplement either your combat or movement capabilities, with many of the bonuses being easy to completely ignore. And honestly, this is very clever. Instead of making palettes and the abilities they adorn you with separate systems, they're combined, taking advantage of the generally less impactful nature of the abilities to give you the opportunity to base your choice on aesthetics or practicality. It's constructive, but in a comfortably clandestine nature. Speaking of aesthetics, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the very thing that makes this game so instantly engaging from the outset: its unshakable sense of style and thematic consistency. That is to say that these 2 aspects are impressive in that they're present everywhere. From the menus, to the dialogue UI, to the dialogue itself, to the stage design, which then culminates in the bosses, which a developer actually said were designed before most of the parts of the game, allowing them to influence each level to an excellent standard. Each area you traverse is brimming with personality, as if the boss you're approaching has been truly personified. Colours are bold and brash, details are precise and ensure no space feels empty or underdeveloped, and the sheer variety in locales is exceptional. It's impossible to mistake one stage for another, and they're all fleshed out with considerable attention. This is no doubt a byproduct of the game's Mega Man style structure, where you're allowed to choose any level you like, with each one having a distinct theme. This greatly offsets the linearity of each level, and strikes a solid medium between having precisely designed levels and allowing the player a choice, which, in a gaming landscape where Metroidvanias tend to dominate the 2D plane, is a surprisingly refreshing structure despite it being some 36 years old, and it makes replayability a far more enticing prospect. Now, time to switch gears, because I want to touch on something you might be a little surprised is even worth mentioning in a review of a 2D platformer, a genre which is famously quite dry: the story. Because the developers have accomplished something here that I personally appreciate to no end. On the outside, the narrative is about what you'd expect. A ragtag band of goofy and reasonably single-minded robots are up against the forces of the malevolent virus army. You play as Kai, the final remaining member of the Guardian Corps, an elite group of robots who wield circuits containing great power, and as the last of your line, it's up to you to save the world. And you know what? That fits exceptionally well into the aesthetic tone of the game. This side of the game's story is simple but fun, Exactly the type of plot you might encounter on a teenager's cartoon, and more than serviceable for facilitating the way in which the rest of the game is presented. So it's fun, and it makes it feel like the game tracks, but is that necessarily captivating? I'm not so sure. No, for that we may need to dig a little deeper, and I'm happy to report that Gravity Circuit has that depth. Without spoiling anything, Kai, this hero, may be competent in his combative abilities, but cognitively he's shot, with next to no memories of the events before the game, and when he starts interacting with the people he used to know, things get more than a little complicated. Not just for Kai, but for the player too, as you both experience events simultaneously with no preconceived notions on his part, and you're able to slowly piece things together based on what he currently knows. Trust me, there's a lot to love about this story. With a mix of video gamey rigidity and some anime-style bombast, the developers achieved great things in the short playtime, which might just alter your perspective on the experience as a whole on repeat playthroughs. Lastly, before we wrap this up, there's no way I can cover this game without giving a hand to its absolutely stellar soundtrack. Created by the Eurobeat extraordinaire Dominic Ninmark, it acts as a shining example of an auditory accentuator, accelerating the action, acting as a testament to your triumph, and even mellowing out the more somber moments. While the range is heavily skewed towards high energy tracks which get the blood pumping, don't get me wrong, in a game like this where the consistency and presentation is so tight, and with a man like that at the helm, I wouldn't want it any other way. So with all that said, what do I really think of Gravity Circuit? Need you even wonder? I think this game is incredible. Born from the minds of people who adore what video games were and what they can be still. It's a concise but quality-rich experience filled to the brim with frenetic action and satisfying movement, all set to challenges which often make you question your approach and utilise your knowledge in new ways. Not to mention that the level of customization available is just right, the narrative is deceptively intriguing, and from the moment you boot the game, I can assure you, you will be immersed in the aesthetics, both visual and auditory, which have been masterfully implemented throughout the entire experience from start to finish. Also, it's fun, and video games are like supposed to be fun. Anyway, this has been Rain Riva. Thanks for watching.